It's September the 22nd, 2022, and this is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 918.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hello and welcome, it's Chris. It's one of these days. 4 things I want to talk about today: Nikon, Raw Nerf, Miniature Wunderland, and Getty. Let's kick this off with Nikon about to take over SLM Solutions. I believe this is just a rumor at this point, but SLM Solutions is a company here in Lübeck in Germany, and which is actually not too far from where I live. And they are a company regarding 3D printing solutions. And we're not talking the little printing solutions where you melt some plastic and put little plastic sausages on top of each other. No, this is like metal printing with lasers and stuff and high-end stuff. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what Nikon wants to do with them. But, of course, when we look at photography companies, they all have multiple businesses. It's rare that a company does nothing but photography, especially nowadays. There's commercial businesses. There's, Olympus does a lot of medical stuff, for example. Of course, many of the photo businesses also have printers and so on. So, but the whole 3D space, the whole manufacturing, X.0 stuff is exciting. I find this exciting. So, yeah, that is Nikon. I'll keep an eye on that because I find it interesting. 620 million euros worth that takeover. Nikon. Okay, second one on the list is about noise. Noise in images and noise in video. And so this is going to be a bit of a nerdy one. But, okay, so how does denoising work? Right, you have an image, you take a picture with a super high ISO and it's all noisy. It's not that easy to do with today's cameras with the big sensors and the enormous amount of dynamic range they have, but there is still a kind of a threshold over which you don't typically want to go when shooting, and that differs by cameras. And I remember back in the earlier days of digital SLRs, some cameras wouldn't be good at anything beyond, ISO 800 or something, which nowadays is a joke because that really works well. But anyway, denoising. So, of course, in the cameras, there's a lot of electronics and there's different kinds of noise. So I'm drastically simplifying here. We're not talking about fixed pattern noise and these kind of things. But in general, you end up with a photo on a memory card and that has noise on it. And then the easiest way to denoise it is, well, first of all, what is noise? Noise is when neighboring pixels differ drastically in brightness value. If you take a black and white picture with a lot of noise, it's like salt and pepper, right? You have different brightnesses in it, and it looks like salt and pepper. So a very classic way of denoising a picture is averaging out neighboring pixels to a certain range. So you end up with mushing them together, which does take care of a lot of the noise, but of course it loses sharpness in the picture. So that means you need some resharpening at the end of it, which is not perfect because then you end up losing details. And like in skin, for example, you lose pores and things, and that makes skin look like plastic wrapped. Or you get a watercolor effect on pictures. Easy to overdo. Then there's other algorithms there that employ edge detection, so they only look at the noise in similar areas, but the edges where the sharpness is, those get kind of excluded. And then there's more advanced denoising, which will, for example, for raw pictures in Lightroom and other raw developers, that those algorithms will go into the individual color channels before the whole demosaicing part of the whole equation takes place, and will denoise individual color channels and then combine them later on, because the software knows the noise profiles of different color channels, blue or green. Green has a very different noise profile from the red channel, for example, or the blue channel. Then, of course, there's AI-based denoising now. AI-based, not just denoising, but recreation of detail that gets lost during denoising, because AI can do that now. So you fill in the blanks that happen from the noise creation. All right, now that's all nice and good, and these things are quite effective. But there's now a paper that's been released, and I will link to a video talking about that talks about raw nerve. Yeah, that was my look. That was the look on my face when I first heard that. Raw nerve. Nerve stands for neural radiance fields, which is an AI technique like that lets you combine multiple still photos into a 3D scene with depth info and everything. And nerve is beginning to pop up in different areas. And then the depth in there is very cool, but that also allows you to the raw nerve technique. What they do now, and I don't fully understand this, to be honest, but it's very impressive. They now use multiple images, not just for generating the 3D, but also to denoise the scene. So now they combine noise and signal data from multiple images, and then take out the noise based on the 3D information. It's very, truly stunning what comes out of there. So yeah, the link in the show notes is to a 2-minute papers video about raw nerve and how they use multiple images and some AI to denoise a scene. Very, very, very cool, and definitely goes into that whole future of photography bucket for sure. Next one is from Hamburg, Germany. Have you heard of the Miniatur Wunderland? Which translates to miniature wonderland, of course. It's all right. So that place is it's very hard to explain. You know what a model train set is, and someone spends days and nights in their basements building train sets and putting little people in there and putting, I don't know, a little moving car here and there and some lights and traffic lights and like building a miniature cityscape, landscape, which as a kid I always wanted that. Never, my parents were never, they never let me do this or get these kind of things. So I was really, really envious of the neighbor kids. But then it turns out the dad was doing all the playing, and the son didn't really do much. Anyway, Miniatur Wunderland in Hamburg is that, but on steroids. I mean, seriously on steroids. A bunch of people have built a big hall full of train sets and roads and landscapes and villages, and I've never been there, but they even have planes taking off and landing, all in miniature, and it's a very I have to go there once. It's sometime in the future. I will certainly go there. People have told me that I thought it would be really cringe, but people have told me no, this is actually pretty awesome. So the video I'm linking in the show notes is partially about the Miniatur Wunderland, but it's also about the Laowa lens. You know, the probe lens. You've probably seen that. It's a macro wide-angle lens that is on a long probe nose kind of thing, so you can stick it into things and under things and in between things that you normally can't get lenses through. And they just came out with one that is like a periscope. It has like a mirror at the end pretty much, so you look around the corner, and that lets you look into other spaces. And of course, these guys at Miniatur Wunderland, they need to take photos and video of their creations, and of course, the cooler the better. So going down into the creations with such a lens it's pretty awesome. So they demonstrate that, and fairly fun. So at one point in time, I'll have to check this out. It's not too far. It's just a couple of hours from here. All right, let's get to story numero 4, which, yeah, that one is an interesting one, I think. Getty Images, the big stock, image agency. They just banned the sale of AI-generated artwork. So we're talking Stable Diffusion, DALL-E 2, Midjourney, and so on. And Getty Images CEO says, and I quote, "There are real concerns with respect to the copyright of outputs from these models and unaddressed rights issues with respect to the imagery, the image metadata, and those individuals contained within the imagery." All right, so I mean, it is clear so far the ability to copyright AI generated art hasn't really been tested in courts yet. And there's also a lot of debate on the ethics of using like artists' work in training data sets for these AIs without their consent. So yeah, that debate is still going on. And Ars Technica wrote an article that I'll link in the show notes. They looked, they still found AI generated work in Getty Images library. So there's that. But I do suspect something a little bit different behind that AI ban. And let's look at Getty first. Maybe a bit of the history, especially about how aggressive they were about their acquisitions, because Getty knows how to take competition out of the market and how to increase their own portfolio. A while ago, they bought iStock Photo. They bought ImageNet. They bought MediaVast, Wire Image. Corbis Images is now, I think, also part of Getty. And not too long ago, even Unsplash, the free images, license-free image website, unsplash.com. So, yeah, the Getty is a bit hungry. Let's put it that way. And they also have a reputation of being quite aggressive when it comes to like pursuing copyright damages. And there are multiple documented cases where I'm not a legal expert, but it felt, at least in some of these cases, as if they were overdoing it quite a bit. If you look at the Wikipedia page about Getty Images, there's an attorney quoted who says that was a legalized form of extortion. And then I remembered that 2016 lawsuit. That's where photographer Carol Highsmith sued Getty unsuccessfully, but she sued Getty because the story was she had donated her over 100,000 image collection royalty-free to the Library of Congress. And Getty started selling unauthorized licenses for those images. And I didn't follow it all the way through, so I'm not sure why they got out of that. But and by the way, Carol Highsmith, the photographer, she found out about Getty licensing her donated photos because she had received a demand letter over $120 from a legal firm that represented Getty, because she had been displaying her own pictures on her own website. So, yeah. All I'm trying to say is Getty has like all the incentives to thwart competition in general. That's what they do. And AI is pretty big threat to at least a big part of their business model. I'm not saying AI will replace documentary photography, rather the opposite. But there's so much generic and even specific stock photography in Getty's possession. And the way this works right now is that like stock photographers need to anticipate what will be in demand at some time in the future. And then they will have to produce that work and then upload it, keyword it, make sure it is findable on the stock websites, and then hope that there will be demand for these photos. And of course, this all hinges, it all hinges on their like gut feel and knowledge of the events that will come that will need stock photography. And the stock sites are like they are like an important part of this whole thing. And of course, it all takes time. It's not just the photography itself, but then, the agencies and businesses who need those photos, they will need time to work on their own projects based on those photos. So simplest example is holiday stuff. Holiday campaigns need stock of snow and Santa and whatever. And there's calendars, there's postcards, there's like all sorts of stuff that needs stock photography. And by the way, which is why Christmas stock photography is shot in summer, preferably somewhere in the Arctic where it's snowy. And summer stock photography for the Northern Hemisphere gets produced in winter, for example, in New Zealand. That's just the reality of it. So there's a whole industry that makes their income based on somewhat generic stock. And AI-generated art is here to threaten that industry big time. And of course, those who make most of the money are the ones selling you those stock photography products. It really compares to the gold rush. The people who made the most money during the gold rush were not the ones shoveling dirt to find gold nuggets. It was the ones selling them the shovels. And before anyone says AI-generated photography isn't good enough, yes, right now you can still often see the artifacts in the generated images. You can still typically tell, but we are at the very early beginnings of this whole development. Very early. Do you remember the 2-megapixel camera in the first iPhone 15 years ago? Look at your smartphone now and what it can do. And today's AI development develops even faster. It has an exponential trajectory. So Getty knows that, and they will fight it tooth and nail. So honestly, I would have been surprised had they not banned AI art from their library. And that was it for this episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thanks so much. Thinking too fast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being subscribed. And as always, you can leave your feedback for the show at tfttf.com/hi. That's tfttf.com/hi. And yeah, you can write, you can record something, you can attach a file. It's all there. And no one has done this so for this week. No one has left any feedback for me. I'm speechless. No, leave your feedback at tfttf.com/hi. I really love to hear your voices on the show. Be it written, spoken. Spoken is nicer, but hey, written is cool too. So yeah, go to tfttf.com/hi. Also follow Tips from the Top Floor on Twitter at tfttfphoto. That's tfttfphoto. And as always, if you have the means to do so, please support the show at Patreon. Your continued support makes a big difference. It's at tfttf.com/Patreon. That's tfttf.com/Patreon. Thank you so much.
I remember that I told you that
And now, what are you waiting for? Go out and take amazing photos.
after pain.
Be super nice to each other.
Said it ain't as easy as it
And of course, happy shooting.